are you?
Hi, John. I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. As good as we can get in these times, but it's still lots of lots of things to do, lots of things to think about. It's so terrific to have you on our program today. You and I have served together on the CMA board, and of course you're heading Google for Canada. That's an exciting role. Looking forward to our discussion today. I think we'll cover it in about three sections. One is just more broadly talking about what is the opportunity for marketers. What is good marketing? Then we'll talk a little bit about planning and executing during the pandemic, and then I want to close off. We have a number of people joining us from our CMA Next program, students who are graduating from university and college programs, looking to start their career in these crazy times, and it would be great to get some of your advice and background for them at the end. So thanks for agreeing to participate. Let me start with a broad question, Sabrina. How would you define good marketing?
Well, first of all, hello to everybody, and especially all to the CMA Next people joining. Actually, there's never been a better time to be a marketer right now. So I'm excited that you are looking at this for your careers. So, what does good marketing look like? Well, marketing is about growing a business. And that's just the main thing. So good marketing grows a business. And we always know that, in the history of marketing, you follow your customer, call it your consumer, your user, whatever you want to look, and you keep up to speed with them, and you serve them in a way that's helpful and useful, and that grows your business.
Great. Do you think that the expectations on marketing have changed recently? Is good marketing the same as it was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago when we were getting started?
Yeah, that's such a pertinent question, John. So look, I've been in the marketing game for over 25 years. My first gig was actually in marketing at Procter & Gamble in Italy in the 90s.
Right.
And when I reflect on what I did as an entry-level marketing person, I spent a lot of time on creative, and that would look like working with a creative agency and giving feedback, going around and giving feedback on creative. Sometimes it would be tested, sometimes our feedback would be enough. And then we would spend a lot of time on media mix, which I used to joke, it was like matching your handbag to your shoes, like TV, print, in-store, some PR, right? Like
right.
Pizzazz. Those were the elements we had in the 90s. And it's amazing to think, right? And then it was a lot about trying to prove the results. So looking at the KPIs, John, I used to get stacks of Nielsen data, of in-store data, and I would have a highlighter and a ruler. It's still burned in my mind. And I would go through and highlight and manually calculate the sales by SKU and try to drive mathematical correlations to our marketing efforts. So,
wow.
The underpinning of that hasn't changed. It's about,
right.
Following and understanding your user, having a great product, and then measuring the business results. But it is just so much more different, because right now, when you think about that creative story, we have the ability to test and iterate online. So for example, as opposed to doing one hero campaign, a marketer might do 20 and test them on YouTube and understand
right.
when people are dropping off and get diverse voices in there. When they're looking at integrated marketing, it's not your handbags and your shoes anymore. I mean, it's a full-blown walk-in closet wardrobe of choices that you've got, right? You've got the internet, you've got social, you've got really interesting, interactive things that folks are doing, etc. And then what has really vastly changed has been the measurement to business outcomes.
Right.
Marketing can get so much closer now to marketing driving business outcomes than these inferences that I used to have to do with a highlighter in the past.
So measurement it's quicker. Everything's very much broader and deeper and quicker. Before we go into a little more of the details, because I do want to talk about measurement as well a little more. I'm interested in your views. Now you sit in a very interesting place ahead of everything for Google Canada. Do you think about good marketing in Canada and Canada's prosperity in the same sentence? Why is good marketing important to Canada as a country?
Yeah, I mean, when we go back to, if we start with the premise that good marketing drives business growth, right? It's about growing a business. Business is growing in Canada are really good for Canada, right? It means that we have more economic opportunity here. It means that we have more jobs. It means that we have more amazing Canadian companies exporting abroad. And this is a big thing I'm seeing right now, is a lot of the marketing and amazing growth stories of Canada are global companies headquartered in Canada. And there's huge opportunity in all of that. Think of the Lululemons, the Shopifys, the Lightspeeds, the Articles. Like these are amazing, amazing businesses headquartered in Canada. And, I think it's really important just to note that digital is a growth engine for these businesses. So digital is a growth engine for Canada. And that's what we all want to see happen, right? We want to see the role of digital, the role of business growth, and marketing at a role, just really having a clear role at that table, which I think now more than ever is happening.
How is Canada perceived around the world? Do people think we have good digital, good marketing, good? How do we stand out?
It's interesting. So I think one of the things, like even when I worked in CPG prior to Google, Canada was always a global test bed for the market. Sometimes they would bring in their top executives in Canada because you almost had like the complexity and span of the US, but in a smaller scale that you can do things. And I know we look at it that way at Google. We try to do interesting tip of the spear things here because it's so interesting. I would also say, though, that maybe we were a little behind on digital adaptation, right? And I think COVID has accelerated that greatly. I mean, user experience, marketing and digital at the C-suite in Canada. Right. A lot of these things we were behind, I would say, our peers, definitely in APAC, in some corners of EMEA, in the US. So, COVID has been a really interesting experience because it's been this mass digitization moment. I mean, it's a once in a generation digitization moment, and everybody is catching up really rapidly. So I think given we have so many strengths, and like honestly, our strength as an ecosystem here, like the talent we have, the tech ecosystem we have, the homegrown amazing companies we have, like we have so much. And if we can speed up in understanding how to use tools to great important business impact outcomes, I think this is a leapfrog moment for Canada. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and it's interesting that some have done extraordinarily well during these times, and other companies, other firms haven't. Are you seeing Canadian companies adopt and pivot during the pandemic? Was it slower to start and now you're seeing it? Like, where are we in that whole continuum as it relates to companies reacting and developing a new approach?
Yeah, this has been a mass once in a generation digitization moment. I mean, you take a very long period of time, call it 5 years, and say 5 months, right? Like that is the amount of change management, say other people are talking about 10 years and 3 months. I think it's very hard to say exactly the number, but a long period of time has happened since March in digitization. And we're absolutely seeing this now. The types of questions that people are asking, the types of partnerships companies are forging, a real like investment in skills, like making sure, and I know this is a big topic for the CMA, making sure that my team understands the tools, uses the tools, understands digital, etc. So there is a lot of great adaptation happening, and we see it on the consumer demand, on our consumer properties, on search, etc. Like just skyrocketing requests for things like curbside pickup, right? Like just 1,000% year on year. Click and collect is growing. Yeah. All of these different things, and so to actually meet that demand, a grocery store has had to accelerate click and collect or accelerate their delivery plans. A retail store, call it like a home improvement store, all of a sudden curbside pickup has become one of their most successful ways to deliver to customers, because you need this resiliency, especially right now in this 28 period that we're in lockdown in Toronto. And it's not just the big companies, it's the small companies. So, the high street near me, everybody is offering click and collect and offering ways to go do curbside pickup, etc. The majority of them are. And I think it's really important to note that this big transformation has been for everybody. It's not just the large companies. It's
Yeah.
really important for the small ones.
Yeah, a question just came in, kind of on topic on that, to what we're talking about, and the individual that is asking the question is saying, if you're traditionally used to running non-digital marketing programs, so out of home where people aren't at anymore, and you have to make that pivot um, to going where they're at, which is in their home, which is limited to a lot of digital approaches. Um, do you have any advice coming from Google on how to accelerate that learning for individuals?
So I think what you're doing right now with CMA Next, I mean, there is a lot of great opportunities. You can go to Grow with Google and there's a whole skilling suite, but I think, what right now, what the CMA Next is doing is fantastic. So I think that's a great place to start. You have to start with strategy though, right? And I
Yeah.
think this is a real seminal moment to think about what your business wants to be in the next 5 years, given this accelerated digital moment. And if you start with strategy anchored on your business outcomes and you really understand what that is, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to grow market share? Do I want to increase profitable users? Do I want to expand globally? Or do I want to actually change my distribution? Starting with all of your strategy and then having your marketing drive that, and then looking at the different partnerships that you can do to have it, and then making sure that you have the right partnerships, the right skills, the right ability to use the tools. I think that's amazing. I mean, the amazing thing about an AdWords campaign is you can start it at like a few dollars a day, right? And you can get a lot of learnings in all of that and understand. You can use your Google Analytics to see where traffic is coming from. And I have one like little story that I think of a pivot that's amazing. So there's a little bookstore. It's called Lay Wines, and it is in Yorkville. And Peter Leywine, I mean, the first shutdown in March, he went from having all of his sales 100% from in-store to suddenly his door was shut. And this is a company that has been around for a long time, very traditional, amazing things. He set up an AdWords campaign and he started to pivot and started to look at this. His sales grew by 18x from when it was, before and when it was shutting down. And he actually saw that 70% of his customers are now not people walking around Yorkville, but people from outside of Canada. So what is outside of Toronto, actually. And what is so fascinating about that is how much he's learned with this pivot and how now this adverse moment, which was very, very difficult for small businesses, just invigorated him to a new thing that he's one of these global companies or cross Canada companies based in Yorkville. He's not just relying on people walking by his shop anymore.
Yeah, no, we had our own experience of that last week with the CMA awards, where we were 150% our normal of attendance, and got to open up the event virtually to all Canadians, which is for me was a wonderful thing. And so there is some real benefits. I want to talk a little bit about demand, if we can, for a while. So there are companies that have got lots of great demand for their products, and others that maybe don't. I mean, if I was in the I'll make a bit of a joke. If I was in the pants business versus the shorts business, maybe maybe I would be worried a little bit. Are there approaches you've seen that have been successful when you need to kind of pivot on product a little bit as well? And another question came in, so I'm going to throw a double question at you about, is there an opportunity from your perspective, just as a marketer, to lean in a little more on kind of some of society's issues during the pandemic, on mental health, and so you can answer either of those questions or both. I'll leave it.
On the first one on product, I think it's interesting. So for some, it's actually an acceleration of things we were already doing. So a lot of CPG companies are really accelerating their DTC, which means direct to consumer platforms. So think about Nespresso, right? That is something that you can actually download an app, coffee delivered to your door, you work out, the details on recycling, and that portion, Allbirds, that's 100% DTC. So there's a lot of really neat things that like established companies are doing on their distribution that is product led. Certain products lend better to DTC versus mass distribution. So that's one thing. A couple of months ago, I talked to a small business owner. It's funny you say that, John. It was called Sur Mesure. It's based in Montreal, and they were a custom suit making company. So they would, you can make suits and things for fancy occasions, which obviously the pandemic has been really tough. So they pivoted their product to two things. One, they pivoted to masks, which has been a lifeline to them, and that has actually allowed them to keep a lot of their supply chain going and et cetera. But the second thing is they pivoted their distribution model in terms of how the fittings, how they did their online store, et cetera. So I think sometimes product is as fundamental as to mask, and sometimes the distribution is also another pivot. And I think it's the overlay of those two and finding the right product market fit where you're seeing a lot of acceleration and creativity and results. And then your second question on value.
Yeah, value and social, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened. We had a huge social justice moment, which was very difficult for everybody in the middle of the pandemic, and I think galvanized everybody to take action. And I think social and values more and more as part of a brand are fundamental and really critical to that. Kevin Johnson, who is the CEO of Mediacom in Canada, he just penned a Think with Google article, and I thought it was great. Yeah, it was about starting with the view of DEI within your organization and listening and retooling and really staring down your team, whether it's 3 people, whether it's 5,000 people, looking at that. And second, really staring down your marketing. And it can be as simple as look at all the marketing you're doing. Does it represent the diversity of your users? Right. And does it represent that? And how do you think about that differently? And I think there's a lot of opportunity, and it can also go right down to your brand, right? And the values that you are driving. For us, it's about helpfulness, right? And it's about, raising different voices, et cetera. And I think every company has a different way of articulating it. And I think it's really, really important and really valuable work to be doing right now.
Tremendous. Let's talk a little bit about 2021 and planning. We're all in these planning exercises right now. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on what, emerging best demonstrated practice, call it, on planning for pandemic is?
Well, there's a lot of noise in the system. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of variability and unknowns, right? We don't know the exact deadlines of vaccinations. We don't know the exact impact on certain industries that it's going to have. Yeah. So what I've been seeing, so I work with, I work with amazing businesses across Canada and globally. And what I see that smart businesses are doing right now is they're looking at longer range planning, but they're building in a lot of different variances, right? So they're looking at, not necessarily one growth curve, but 3. And then they're being very, very agile. So right. How do we think about setting up our marketing to drive business growth, right? Not necessarily, don't pick the wrong KPI, like pick a business growth KPI and then work backwards to how you're going to measure to that business growth. Yeah. And then have the leading indicators be markers of which curve you're riding, and then a sense of, what you're going to do. But the other thing is have agility in your media choices, right? Because we're also seeing a lot of folks, they want agility in that, right? Folks don't necessarily want to lock up things for 12 months, et cetera, because they want a little bit of that. And I think in the agility, we're teaching ourselves to be more resilient. And we're linking it more to business results. And I think those are 2 really big themes that I see in 2021 planning.
Interesting. And I think certainly we have been more focused on what our outcomes that we want to have are, and that gives a bit of more of a laser focus on how we want to apply our resources, because we are continuing to work in a form of a crisis, and so you do need to kind of prioritize.
Yeah, and John, just one other thing to add to that, look, there are so many future trends signals, like Google search and Google Trends is a fantastic one to see, like, you can see patio heaters popped
Yeah.
recently. Like, every 3 months there's a new thing, bread, hair clippers. You can see where this organic demand and where the curve is starting to rise on that. But actually, the most important thing in 2021 planning, in addition to building resiliency, in addition to building, flexibility, etc., is you need an amazing, amazing digital presence. And when I walk onto the Danforth and I go and I look around, there's some amazing shops, there are restaurants that I really want to look at. And I think, oh, I want to go there. There's one in particular. I go to find them online. They're not all of them are there. Majority of them are, but it could be as simple as setting up your account on Google My Business. It could be as simple as having a website, and we have this amazing initiative called Shop Here, which lets every small business, it's in partnership with Digital Main Street. We're helping small businesses across Canada light up their digital presence. And then it can be going further and doing what Peter Leywine did and starting an ad campaign and trying to find out if you have audiences outside your close proximity.
Yeah.
So I just think the digital presence, like, this is strategic and important. It's a C-suite conversation. It's not the digital guy in the corner or girl in the corner anymore. It is about digital at the core of your strategy.
Great. No, thank you very much. I wanted to end off with going back to the discussion we started at the beginning, talking about if you're going into marketing. Now, I know your kids aren't old enough yet to be going off to university, perish the thought. But what advice would you have for someone as they're getting into their careers? And by the way, I want to also say thank you to Google. You guys have been a really great partner to the CMA, and I know you're investing in our partnership on CMA Next, which we're really looking forward to as well. But what advice would you have to someone that you knew, trying to navigate a career to get into marketing? What are the things you should do in preparation? How should you look for your first job?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's never been a better time to be in marketing right now, John. Like, I think it's really exciting. What I like about marketing, and I've been in marketing, like I started my career in marketing, and now of course I'm in a different type of role, but it's a great place to start your career. What I like about it is the left brain, right brain flex. And I do think that's the unicorn of soft skills. Like, we're going to need amazing people with EQ, creativity, but also who understand numbers and understand data and understand tools, right? Yeah. And that left brain, right brain is a really fun place to be. So my advice to you would be to look at the companies that you're looking at and to look at how good their training is. And then to think about how prepared you are for those interviews, especially when you're going in on that, because there are so many amazing places to learn. CMA Next, all of, Grow with Google, there are amazing places to understand how to use the tools. And what I love about the generation of future marketing coming through is they're natives, right? Like, we don't need to explain what a click is. We don't need to explain how different types of platforms or apps work, because you use it. But I think the opportunity is to think about it from a strategy standpoint, from business to marketing, and then how you use the tools to do that. So my advice would be to pick a couple of areas to learn tools in digital, to start thinking about understanding strategy. Like, there's a great article on Think with Google from one of our senior leaders. It's about, the new CMO in marketing and how that's changing. So you can actually see how the CMO role is changing, right?
Right.
And then think about building your skills and continuously build your skills. Talk to other people who have entry level roles in marketing. And join places where you're going to learn, where you can be a sponge and you can learn and have impact. Those are the two things I always look for. Mm-hmm. And then be prepared. Be prepared for, think about your career as a journey. It's not necessarily about getting to a destination of, I remember when I was at Procter & Gamble, everybody wanted to get to brand manager. Right. It mattered if it was like 2.7 years versus 3 years, people cared. And I think about that now, I think like, oh my gosh, like that was so the wrong thing to be caring about. And I understand that, but I think what's really important is, what are you learning? How much impact are you having on the business? And how do you always focus on those two things? And what network are you building? Because it's not only your skills and the results, it's the network that propels you in your career journey, and the advice you get from people and the leverage you give them. So I think it's super exciting, and I hope there's going to be a lot of work in this area. So I hope that you all find amazing jobs.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the one thing that I see out of this cohort coming out, as I talk to a number of students, is a passion is there. And I think passion is very important. You have to be passionate about, interested in,
Yeah.
curious about what you need to learn, what you're missing, think strategy. Really great advice. Sabrina, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I love this conversation. Looking forward to our next one. Thanks again.
Thank you, and good luck to everybody.